And a very good Sunday evening to everybody. How's it going? Hope y'all have had a fantastic 4th of July week. Hope y'all have had a fantastic weekend. This is, of course, the Sunday night edition of the RCWR Post Show on July 8th, 2012. I am, of course, as always, the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders, and I thank you all kindly for checking out tonight's episode on Blog Talk Radio and over at our sister website at InfinityOneProductions.com. If you wish to join in on the discussion of the TNA Destination X pay-per-view that we just saw go off the air a few minutes ago, feel free to chime in your thoughts. We have a chat room that's open, so for you all that is a little bit shy, it's okay. You can just jump on in the chat room, join in on a number of the discussions that's happening right now. Check that out when you get a chance. We are also up on Twitter at Infinity1Prod and on Facebook at Infinity1 Productions. So be sure to check those out as well. And we definitely want to hear from those of you that had took the liberty of checking out the TNA Destination X pay-per-view. Now, if you've been listening to the show, we definitely appreciate you checking out all of our episodes, but we definitely, especially for those of you that checked out tonight's Destination X pay-per-view and you're a longtime listener, we definitely want to hear your thoughts on how you enjoyed tonight's pay-per-view, because when it's all said and done, this pay-per-view alone is definitely one for the history books. From top to bottom, fantastic pay-per-view, but the main event of the night is definitely what has myself and including a lot of TNA wrestling fans saying to ourselves, oh no, they didn't. And that is just a prelude of things to come, folks. Definitely sit tight, enjoy this show for the next hour plus that we're going to be on the air. But again, for those of you that have checked out the Destination X pay-per-view, we definitely want to hear your thoughts. Even from those of you that may have used to be a TNA fan and you recently returned and you happen to check out tonight's pay-per-view, we definitely want to know your thoughts of tonight's show. So feel free to kick back, smile, and dial, and call us toll free at 1-888-342-9848. Again, that's 1-888-342-9848. Just kick back, smile, and dial, and you'll be live on the air. So without any further ado, let's jump right into tonight's Destination X pay-per-view. And as I had said it on the Destination X Call That Match special, which is an exclusive for YouTube, my takeaway from tonight's pay-per-view, you just could not go wrong, folks, because this pay-per-view was just a straight-up pure wrestling, professional wrestling pay-per-view. Now, some would argue that, oh, well, when it comes to the X division, that has a lot of spots, a lot of high-flying. Well, that could be, respectfully, that argument can be granted, valid point right there. But tonight's pay-per-view, it just really reeked of wrestling. And we should also point out to those of you that didn't check out the Destination X Call That Match special, it's good if you did not check it out, because I had got a hold of some information after I had did the Call That Match special, and it was one of those, if only I would have had it beforehand, because I really wasn't quite sure about the type of matches that were going to be taking place at tonight's pay-per-view. Now, a lot of people were under the impression that with regards to the last chance fatal four-way match, that the winner of that match was going to be injected into a 8-man match where 4 winners would be determined from that match that would go on into the Ultimate X match. That's what a lot of people were under the impression. Well, folks, it would actually turn now that we would see a series of X Division qualifying matches on tonight's pay-per-view, and the winners of those respected matches would meet into the Ultimate X match where 4 people would take each other on. So it's okay if you had got a little bit confused. I had got a little bit confused there myself. It happens. It's one of those things that I had pointed out on the Thursday night edition of Impact Showdown that I wish TNA would have did a little bit of a better job letting us know what we could expect at the pay-per-view, as there really wasn't that much hype. But luckily, tonight's pay-per-view, it definitely delivered. Now, TNA President Dixie Carter, she would take on to her Twitter account at TNA Dixie, and she would say a few things, just giving us all a heads up before the pay-per-view had kicked off. And one of the things that she said was, TNA's on a roll with a string of great pay-per-views. I promise Destination X is destined to keep that streak alive. Not hype for once, was the reply back from a lot of people who were picking up that same vibe as well. And Dixie Carter would also send out another tweet a few minutes later letting us know that she's excited to have someone backstage who will be a great surprise for Destination X tonight. Now, that would not be the only thing that Dixie Carter would say, as one more tweet, which would be very critical in one of the matches that we were going to be getting on tonight's Destination X pay-per-view, had to do with the winner of the Last Chance Fatal 4-Way match will immediately face Kid Kash in a one-on-one match. Now, from there, we would see a great, fantastic video package opening of the X Division. It would show X Division highlights blending in so perfectly with what's been going on with Roobert Roode and Austin Aries. You're just really coming away from that video package saying to yourself, man, Austin Aries, he has accomplished so much in the year plus that he's been with TNA. Could tonight be his night? That would be the question. And from there, folks, we're officially joined by Jeremy Borash and Mike Tenay. And, folks, if you haven't had the luxury of being able to hear Jeremy Borash do commentating, I don't think this man gets enough credit in the world. He was just really, really on point. This guy, I just love it when he does commentating. And I was just really feeling invested into the whole pay-per-view, as the way he brought the professionalism to the commentating booth tonight, he basically elevated Mike Tenay's game even more. And it was just one of those pairings where I hope that TNA takes note of this and does the right thing for the future, and maybe kind of flip it back and forth between Jeremy and Taz, because quite honestly, there's only but so many times I can hear Mike Tenay and Taz, really Taz, sit up and say, oh, watch out now, Mike. Got to let those pigeons loose. I mean, it's only so many times I can hear that. It just, sometimes a lot of people will say, Taz, he really doesn't do that much of a good job commentating. He needs to just shut up once in a while. Hopefully, TNA will take note of what had went down between Jeremy Borash and Mike Tenay, and we can see that pairing happen more often, as Jeremy Borash, he just doesn't get enough credit in the world. Taz, of course, we don't know what was happening with Taz. We've been staying on top of the wrestling news all weekend. We don't know anything about what's going on with Taz. Not sure if maybe he had a family emergency, something came up. We don't know. All we know is Jeremy Borash was stepping in for Taz tonight to cover the pay-per-view. Fantastic job right there with the pairing. So, now, let's go on with our first match of tonight's pay-per-view, which saw Mason Andrews taking on Rubix, taking on Lars Only, taking on Dakota Darso in the Last Chance Fatal 4-Way match, where the only way to win this contest would be to score the first pinfall or submission to win this match. And everybody had a lot of favorites with regards to who could possibly win this match. One name that a lot of people were not picking, and we were paying attention to all of social media as far as who everybody thought was going to get the job done with this first match. Everybody was picking everybody else except for Lars only. So I don't know what message you can take away from that. If you want to pick my brain a little bit, I just really wasn't that impressed with Lars only. He kind of strikes me as an individual that maybe might be listening to a little bit of too much Metallica, and rather than call himself Lars Ulrich, he decides that he wants to call himself Lars only. I don't know, but I just was a little bit baffled that he was even involved in this match, as it should have been somebody else in this contest. Would have been nice to see Kid Kash, but that's a different story. In any case, folks, this was our first matchup. Damn impressive, as we would see Mason Andrews pick up the win and in great fashion, and then just immediately Kid Kash comes out, and our second match is underway as Kid Kash is taking on Mason Andrews. So this Kid Andrews, he hasn't had a breather. He just got his victory. Here he is again. He's got to muster it up. He's got to dig down deep, and he's got to go into overtime. And Kid Kash was just having his way with Mason Andrews for a little bit, folks. And he was just using that mean streak that he's been getting over the years. I don't know if that's because of age, or maybe it might actually have to do with the fact that nowadays he's pursuing the MMA career. So maybe that's where a little bit more of that extra mean streak is coming from. But he was really bringing it to Mason Andrews tonight, really being physical with this kid. But in the end, Mason Andrews, he was able to make a comeback, and he was able to score the victory and advance into the Ultimate X quarterfinals. So one cool point I had liked about this match was during the contest, the fans, they had started to get on Kid Kash a little bit. They were chanting some incoherent names that I couldn't really make out at him, and Kid Kash, he just kind of broke character for a little bit, and he just pretended he was revving up, reeling up, if you will, a middle finger that he just gave to the Impact crowd. Really phenomenal stuff right there. Backstage segment, we go now, folks, where we see Christy Hemme, who is trying to get thoughts with Samoa Joe on who he thinks is going to win between the Bobby Roode versus Austin Aries match. Samoa Joe, he says, you know what, I've got to go with Aries. This is a guy that's beat me before. I'm going to go with somebody that's beat me. I'm going to go with Austin Aries. I think he's going to get the job done. Now, Christy would point out the Bound for Glory leaderboards and try to get Samoa Joe's strategy, as he's going to be taking on Kurt Angle in a one-on-one contest as Bound for Glory continues, and we have points up for grabs as these two men are going to be getting it on head-to-head. And Samoa Joe states, my strategy? Well, in the past, it was to hurt, hunt, kill everyone in my path. Nowadays, it's a little bit different because now I see an opportunity. I see a path to my TNA World Heavyweight title. And he points out that Kurt Angle, he is not an indestructible machine. He is simply a man, and that he will defeat him by any means necessary. Now, from there, folks, we go to our third match of the night, which saw Kenny King, which has quickly become a fan favorite, especially for you Ring of Honor fans that have been following the one half of the tag team championship belts for Ring of Honor, as Kenny King would take on Douglas Williams. This was another match that was definitely on point. I was having a blast watching this match. Now, one point during this contest, probably a little bit in the middle of the match, or maybe just a little bit towards the end, the crowd, they kind of seemed a little bit out of it. And that was kind of one of the main themes of the night, unfortunately, as the crowd, they were watching some fantastic matches, and if you just pretended that the crowd didn't exist and you could just really invest into it, then you wouldn't pay them no mind. But for those of you that happen to feed off of a crowd as you're watching your matches, you can definitely relate to what I'm saying, where throughout the course of the night, the crowd, even though they're watching a fantastic match, there's no low points. They're sitting up and they're being very quiet. And as I said a few seconds ago, with this match, they definitely were sitting up and they were being a bit quiet. I mean, you could hear somebody cough in the arena. That's how quiet it had got. You could probably hear somebody drop a coin. I mean, that's just how quiet it was. Not really sure what was happening with the crowd right there. Nonetheless, we had a fantastic match with Kenny King versus Douglas Williams, as he went on to defeat Williams to advance into the X Division quarterfinals. Now, from there, folks, we go to another backstage segment now where we see Christy Hemme has caught up with Christopher Daniels, and Christopher Daniels, he's making it his business to come to work intoxicated as he has another glass of his favorite yellow drink, margarita, who knows what it is. And Chrissy Hemme is trying to get thoughts on Daniels' match with AJ that's going to be coming up later, as the two of them are going to be involved in a last man standing match. Now, Daniels would point out how last year he felt as though he was AJ Styles' lackey, that he was his support system, if you will, but that now he's lost that mentality, and that ever since he's broken away from AJ Styles, he's been on a winning streak. He's been dominating, and to back up his point, he's now one half of the TNA Tag Team Champions of the world, and that he's also the new face of Impact Wrestling. And he feels that the point of this last man standing match that he's going to be having with AJ is to beat his opponent senseless. And that is something that he's going to take great pleasure in doing. As far as Daniels is concerned, AJ has been sitting up, taking advantage of TNA President Dixie Carter, and he took advantage of a woman who was in a very poor mental state to the point where it got her pregnant, and would go so far as to say that AJ Styles is not the type of man who's going to be winning the last man standing match. Now, from there, folks, we go to our fourth match of the card, which saw Sonjay Dutt taking on Rashad Cameron. And for those of you that have been watching TNA wrestling over the years and you know about Sonjay Dutt, you definitely were probably rooting this guy on, as this title, this X Division title, was one of the things that have eluded Sonjay Dutt during his time with TNA. How that was even possible, we don't know, but he has never been able to lay claim to being the X Division champion. Well, we would see Sonjay Dutt pick up the win on Rashad Cameron to advance into that X Division quarterfinals match. Now, from there, folks, very emotional, touching moment as we see a recap of what had happened earlier in the year at the Against All Odds pay-per-view, where we saw Jesse Sorsen take that nasty bump as he was having his match against Zema Ion. And who could forget? I definitely remember watching that pay-per-view, and it was just really quiet in the Impact Arena as we all just weren't really sure what to make of what was happening with Jesse Sorsen. We were hoping that somehow he could give some type of a sign that he was definitely okay, maybe put his arm in the air, move his legs. I mean, we didn't see any of that, and it just looked very scary as we just aren't sure if this guy is going to be able to walk again or what have you. And I know there were some people that were a little bit curious why they were showing this video package chronicling what had happened to Jesse Sorsen. Well, it would turn out we would get a update on how he's been doing, his condition. As if you haven't heard or you don't know by now, the target date or year rather when Jesse Sorensen is probably going to be able to come back to wrestling at 100% is going to be early 2013. So the video footage that they showed of him recently, very happy to say that he is now walking around. He can actually move his neck to the left, to the right. He's still wearing a neck brace, but he's walking around, he's moving. Those are the most important things that we can take away from this update, as his doctor points out during the video package that Jesse can pursue a wrestling career. He just needs to be more smarter about how he moves in the ring, and that there's a series of exercises that Jesse will have to do to re-strengthen his neck. But as long as he does these exercises to strengthen it and he wrestles smarter, he can definitely have longevity in his wrestling career. Now, we take away from that and we see Jesse Sorensen, who's with his, I guess it's his girlfriend or his wife, as he mentions how it just seemed like one moonsault that he did had possibly caused him to be paralyzed. And when he was in that state, all he could try to do was think positive. As Christy Hemme is in the middle of the ring at Destination X, and she welcomes back Jesse Sorensen. That's right, folks. Jesse returned at Destination X, and he received such a huge ovation from the crowd. It was definitely an emotional moment that you could feel right then and there. I really wasn't even sure if Jesse was going to be saying anything, but he actually would get in the ring, and he would grab a microphone, and he would talk to the crowd in attendance, and he would say how Dixie Carter asked him if he was nervous. And Jesse would say, hey, it's good to feel anything at this point. And he would recollect how the last time he was in the arena, he had to get carried out on a stretcher, and that he wasn't able to feel anything from his neck down. And he could just remember staring at the ceiling for days, wondering if his career was over, wondering if he'll ever walk again, and that the last thing he remembered hearing from that Impact Arena, from the crowd, was the crowd chanting his name. And at that point, everybody, they actually did start chanting his name right then and there, live on pay-per-view. And Jesse, he just started to get even more emotional as he thanked everyone, from just the fans, just everybody, just thanking them for the support, continuing to send him get well wishes, and the crowd, they would chant back, thank you, Jesse, before he would say to them, no, thank you. But then he would turn his attention to the man that had got him injured in the first place, which is a Mr. Zema Ion, as he would point out to Zema that he hasn't forgotten about him and that he hopes that Zema wins the X Division title, because just as Zema tried to take away Jesse's career, Jesse promises that he's going to be taking away the title from him. And that same time next year, come Destination X 2013, he will be the new X Division champion, who will then cash it in and become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Big, bold words right there, as we see that the Zema Ion, Jesse Sorensen feud is continuing off of that injury. And just before Jesse could leave the arena, we would hear the music of Zema Ion as he would come out and he would look at Jesse face to face without saying a word before going into the ring for his match. And as we would hear from Mike Tenay and Jeremy Borash, that was actually the first time since the injury that Zema Ion and Jesse Sorensen actually came face-to-face, that there was actually some type of a communication, if you will, even though the two men didn't say anything to one another. As it turns out, that ever since Jesse was injured, Zema, he didn't send him get well wishes. He didn't send him an email, a text, flowers, nothing. Just nothing. So really interesting to see how they are continuing to push Zema Ion, Jesse Source, and you can just feel from TNA Creative that this is definitely an explosive storyline, one that people can definitely invest in, people can definitely want to get behind, and I think that they have just been doing this beautifully. Now, I still feel, and I've been very critical of Zema Ion, even most recently on an episode of Impact Showdown, where I was very critical of him for injuring Chris Sabin, as I still feel Zema is a little bit reckless, and as I said, if he were to do that with a company up in Stamford, Connecticut, they would have definitely given him his walking papers, because they just would have considered him to be too reckless, too dangerous to work with. But TNA, they are sticking their neck out for this guy. You can only hope that Zema Ion, he just continues to do what he did in the past before he got dropped off the radar, because remember, he was on a bit of a streak there until things had went the way that they did with Jesse, and then slowly but surely we just start seeing him off of TV more and more. So if he can just try to do his best to stay out of trouble and not injuring his dance partner in the ring, then, hey, this definitely is going to be one decent feud, I feel, where the payoff can be pretty good if it's handled right. Now, our fifth match, we see Zema Ion taking on Flip Cassanova. And I must say, as opposed to how we last saw Flip Cassanova on an episode of Impact Wrestling, he came off a little bit more well-timed, a little bit more patient, and looking for his high spots. As I said on Impact Showdown, he had that match there where he was taking on Dakota Darso, and he just seemed like he was just a little bit sloppy, as 2 points during their match on this past Thursday night's Impact, he injured Dakota. At one point, his knee had hit the face of Dakota, and Dakota just has the blood just dripping everywhere. It was a pretty ugly sight. If you didn't have the pleasure of checking that out, you definitely want to look that up online. It was pretty brutal. And this match, though, tonight, Destination X, he came off better. I was more pleased with what I saw of him in the ring. But surprisingly, folks, just when you think that Flip Casanova is probably going to get the job done, he's going to advance, we would see Zema Ion advance. So now you're kind of scratching your heads and you're kind of saying to yourself, is this possibly a taste of things to come? Are they really going to make Zema Ion be the X Division champion? Well, we'll know in just a little bit, folks. As from there, we see Christy Hemme in a backstage segment with Kenny King, Sonjay Dutt, Mason Andrews, who are all giving their thoughts on why they feel they're going to be the ones to possibly become the X Division champion, when we would see the it factor of professional wrestling, the one and only, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, Roobert Roode, who comes in crashing the scene, and he says, what, you guys want to talk about your moment? No, this is about my moment. This is my show. You all are talking about possibly becoming the next X Division champion. Big whoopee. The only match that matters right now is mine, as I'll be destroying your poster boy, Austin Aries, and as a result of that, the X Division is going to fail. Austin Aries is going to fail. Now, from there, folks, we have our sixth match of the night, which is the Bound for Glory match, as we have some points that are up for grabs here, as Samoa Joe is taking on the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. Now, I paid very close attention to this match, and I'm keeping in mind of all the great matchups that we have seen from Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe over the years. And I must say, this match alone, unfortunately for me, and it might offend some people, but I'm just calling it how I see it. It's just my opinion. You don't have to agree, but hey, it's okay to disagree. But this match, I just really felt as though it wasn't what I expected. I've seen better matches from Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. Now, scale of 1 to 10, I would have to give this match probably a 6.5, maybe 7, tops. I just really wasn't that pleased with what I had saw in the match, but it was still decent nonetheless, as these two, they got it on, and it was everything that you would expect from a Samoa Joe versus Kurt Angle match. I mean, these guys, they were just going at it back and forth. They were busting out the submission holds. It was a straight-up, pure wrestling match. And when it was all said and done right here, critical point in this match, we would see Samoa Joe slap on that rear naked choke. You know, that rear naked choke that he loves applying when he's about ready to wrap it up. And he gets Kurt Angle in it. And we see Kurt Angle, who is just laying there on the canvas, and he is just unresponsive. And the referee, he's trying his best. I mean, he is just literally in Kurt Angle's face trying to get him to respond. And Kurt Angle is not responding whatsoever. The referee had no choice but to call for the bell and give the win to Samoa Joe. So Samoa Joe, he won by submission. And, I mean, for me, like I said on the Call That Match special, Samoa Joe, he needed this win because Kurt Angle, he's done everything that he needed to do. When it's all said and done, he's definitely going to be in some type of Hall of Fame, whether it's from the WWE, TNA, both. He's definitely a future Hall of Famer. He's done everything that has needed to be done at this point in his career. At the age of 43, he definitely needs to be trying to put over younger talent. Samoa Joe, he's not necessarily a young man, but he's still younger than Kurt Angle. I definitely felt that this was a match where Samoa Joe needed to get the win, and he definitely got the win right there. I was very pleased with the end result. But again, I've seen better matches from these two. Hopefully, the next time these two guys will lock it up again, maybe there can be a little bit more of a storyline behind it rather than TNA Creative just trying to rely on video highlights from their first epic encounter where Kurt Angle headbutted the hell out of Samoa Joe. Great moment right there, but when you have a match like this where you really didn't take the time to build that much of a storyline, I just feel that they could have done a better job hyping up this match. Maybe if they would have done a better job hyping up this match, maybe I, as well as many other people, could have felt a little bit more invested, especially with the way the payoff had ended. But hopefully this won't be the last time we see these two lock it up. But Samoa Joe, he picks up the win. For those of you that have been paying attention to the Bound for Glory leaderboards, you already know what that meant as a result of Samoa Joe picking up that win by submission, as if you score a win by submission, you get 10 points. If you just score a regular pinfall, that's 7 points. Well, Samoa Joe, he picked up the 10 points. Here's your new leaderboard status for those of you that are curious. We have Samoa Joe with his 10 points. He is now the number one leader as he is at 37 points. We have the Cowboy, James Storm, who is at 36 points. We have Jeff Hardy, who is at 21 points. Kurt Angle is at 20 points. Magnus is at 12 points. Mr. Anderson is at 9 points. The Pope, RVD, they are at 7 points. And we have AJ Styles, Bully Ray with no points. So those are your leaderboard stats right there. Oh, and Christopher Daniels at 0 points as well. So those are your Bound for Glory leaderboard stats. Now, from there, folks, it's time for our last man standing match as AJ Styles takes on Christopher Daniels. Now, before I give you the results of this match, there was a video on YouTube that TNA had uploaded through their channel, and they quickly pulled it down. It had to do with AJ Styles being interviewed by SoCal Val just a couple of hours before the Destination X pay-per-view, and he was giving his thoughts on what it was going to be when he gets ready to take on Christopher Daniels in their match. Now, it was so funny because I actually was just messing around on YouTube, and I actually saw the message from TNA when they had uploaded this video. Now, I watched it, and the video was just pulled in about 5 minutes after I watched it. So I guess they probably didn't like the way that it had came off. I thought it was fantastic. Now, I took the liberty of breaking it down and putting it in audio format for you all to listen to. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to let you guys hear that piece, as I thought it was pretty awesome. I thought AJ Styles did a pretty good job with it, but why they pulled it, I don't know. But here, I hope you guys will enjoy this. Let me just look it up for you guys right now, and we'll come right back. We'll share with you the results of the last man standing match. Enjoy, folks.
Hey, guys, it's TNA Knockout SoCal Val backstage before Destination X. The excitement is brewing, and right now I have an exclusive interview with the phenomenal AJ Styles. Tonight you're going to be facing Daniels in a last man standing match, and I got to tell you, I mean, this feud between you and Daniels and Kazarian has gone way above and beyond wrestling. I mean, they've gotten so personal, and they pretty much smeared the name of AJ Styles everywhere.
They smeared the name of AJ Styles? According to who? You?
Tarnished?
I'm just saying, we proved them wrong. You know, they said that Dixie and I were together having an affair. Didn't happen. We proved them wrong. And now they're coming up with another lie, which is so ridiculous. The fact that I'm supposed to have a child with someone, it's just silly, really. I mean, if it's okay, I'll keep this PG.
Okay.
And it's going to be simple. I would have to put my D in her V to make a B. Do you understand what I'm saying here? And that never happened. Claire and I have never been together. So, tarnished my name? I don't think so. It's just what you're going to believe. It's who you want to believe.
Well, this is definitely going to be a hellacious match. It's always entertaining when you, AJ Styles, face Daniels, but this one is so important given the personal history. But how do you prepare for a last man standing match?
Listen, I know Christopher Daniels better than he knows himself, okay? And the fact that I'm going to shut him up, and you know how loud he can be. You've been around him. He never shuts up. Well, I'm going to see if I can wire his mouth shut. Now, how do you do that? You break his jaw. I intend on putting him through, I'm not going to say it. You know exactly what I'm going to put him through. And I will be the last man standing. That you can bet on.
I can't wait for this one. It's going to be AJ Styles against Daniels tonight in a last man standing match. You don't want to miss it, guys. Destination X is live on pay-per-view tonight.
I thought that was a pretty good 2-minute piece there. I'm not sure why YouTube pulled it. Maybe they just didn't like the way AJ delivered it, but I thought it was decent. I don't know how you guys feel in the chat room, but I thought that was a good piece. It's actually something that they could have went with during the pay-per-view, but I can respect them for pulling it off, but I just thought it was pretty good. So from there, folks, we go to our 7th match of the night, which is the last man standing match, as AJ Styles takes on Christopher Daniels, and man, these guys, they really freaking delivered. No matter how many times I see AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels lock it up, and I've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of their matches over the years. it never gets dull. It never gets boring. It just seems like each time they lock it up, it just gets better and better and better. And this match alone is definitely a match that a lot of TNA fans are going to be talking about for years to come. This match was just freaking awesome. And, I mean, there were several high points to this match. I mean, first of all, we had the blood that made an appearance as both of these guys would find themselves bleeding in the face area, head area at some point during this contest. But one of the points that I had liked in the match, and there were several, but one of the points I had liked of this contest was when they took their battle over to the stage area, and AJ Styles, he hits Daniels with the Pele, and it looks like Daniels is down for a little bit as the ref, he's trying to count to 10, but Daniels, he's able to get up. AJ Styles, he's just a few feet away from him, and he's just waiting for him to get up. He figured the Pele wasn't enough, so he's just waiting for him to get up, and then he comes at him with a clothesline. Daniels, he musters up enough gas in his tank to charge at AJ, and he comes in with a clothesline too. So both of these guys take each other out with a clothesline as they're both just laying there. And you're saying to yourself at that point, man, this is a really great match. Man, what can happen now? And what would happen next is we see AJ Styles, he's trying to come to, and Kazarian makes an appearance. And he just literally comes out of nowhere, and he just pushes AJ off of the stage area, and AJ just lands all funny. He's down for a little bit as he's trying to help his tag buddy Christopher Daniels up. The referee, he has no choice but to go over to AJ Styles, and I just thought that was a little bit weird because we have the referee who's yelling at Kazarian, questioning him why he's out there, all that. Well, you can't DQ him because it's the last man standing match. Rather than focus on Kazarian, you should be focusing on Daniels and AJ and try to figure out who's going to come to first. I just thought that was a little bit of a messed up move right there because as soon as AJ falls, the referee just goes right for AJ. Meanwhile, Daniels is still down. It should have been a double count right there. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe I might have read that a little wrong, but I swear that's how I saw it. But in either case, Daniels would eventually get up as the referee is just focused only on AJ Styles, who manages to get up. And from there, folks, we would see the two of them continue to get it on as the fight would soon go over near the ring area. And Daniels, he tried to take out a table, a wooden table, and eventually the fight, it makes its way back to the stage area where Kazarian, he tries to interfere again, but AJ Styles, he takes him out. And this was probably one of the most beautiful things you could see when it came to checking out this pay-per-view match right here. We would see the table that Daniels took the liberty of setting up just a little bit below the stage area. AJ Styles, he gets Daniels in the Styles Clash, and rather than complete doing the Styles Clash, he just leaps off of the stage ramp area with Daniels, sends him crashing through the table for a OMG WTF moment right there, as the fans, they are just erupting, they're loving what they're seeing, and both men, they're struggling at this point to get up on their feet, but it would be AJ Styles who would be able to come to for the victory right there. This was definitely a classic matchup. It was fantastic. I love seeing this match. These two guys, they definitely created a great memory right there for the history books as far as their chronicled rivalry goes. Hopefully, this puts an end to that ridiculous Claire Lynch storyline. If they're going to go any further with Claire Lynch, I think at this point, just put the storyline on hold for several weeks Let us forget who this Claire person is. Let us forget how she looks. Maybe they can introduce a new actress, one that can actually act, maybe a little bit similar so that the appearance doesn't switch up too much, and maybe they can continue it from there. But for right now, whoever they got playing Claire, it's just not working. Move on. But personally, I just want to see this storyline be done with. Should be very interesting to see what's going to happen on Thursday night's Impact Wrestling Live. Now, from there, folks, we go to our next, we go to Jeremy Borash and Mike Tenay, who are giving us the results of a poll that they had open throughout the day, actually, where they were getting TNA fans' thoughts on who they felt was going to win between the Austin Aries versus Roobert Roode match. And, man, check this out. 71% said that Aries is going to win. Only 29% voted for Roode. From there, we see a backstage segment now where we got the lovely Christy Hemme with Austin Aries getting his thoughts on what's to come. And Austin Aries, he says, hey, best wishes to the X Division contestants. Good luck. But that's in my rearview mirror right now. Right now, I'm focused on what's happening in front of me, as Austin Aries' focus is on becoming the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And he will point out a few things about Bobby Roode, saying that, hey, he calls himself the It Factor. He's going around winning by taking belt shots to people's heads, taking beer bottles to people's heads, and says that he's been winning all of his matches with brain busters, and that he's going to give the fans, his mom, something to talk about. He's going to give them a champion that they all can be proud of, as he promises to walk out of Destination X, the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and prove just why he is the greatest man that ever lived. So a great moment right there, folks, as it's time for our 8th match, the Ultimate X match, where we have the X Division title up for grabs. Now, for those of you keeping track, it's Kenny King versus Zema Ion versus Mason Andrews versus Sonjay Dutt. Now, I know a lot of people were looking for Kenny King to pick up this win and become the new TNA X Division champion. I was looking for this win too, but, I knew that something was up when I actually had found out this information late. I got it so late. It was after I did the Call That Match special on YouTube. And if I would have had the information before, I would have definitely went in a different route. But I just went with the information that I had at the time. And what a lot of wrestling fans didn't know is that Kenny King is contracted to Ring of Honor Wrestling right now. Now, for those of you that don't really know what's going on, well, Kenny King, he has a bit of a verbal agreement with Ring of Honor Wrestling right now. And, we don't want to really get into too much detail about it tonight because we really just want it to be about the pay-per-view. We'll definitely follow up on it more on our Tuesday night edition of the RCWR show. Who knows, maybe if we take a commercial break, if those of you in the chat room, if you want to know a little bit more details about Kenny King, then maybe we could go into it a little bit more further tonight, but I figured we would just save it for the Tuesday night show. But because of his commitments to Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor, they actually released a statement about his dealings with TNA Impact. He's a little bit in the doghouse right now, so it just kind of made a little bit of sense when you think about it that Kenny King wouldn't have anything to do with becoming the X Division champion. So on that note, you're kind of saying to yourself, okay, well, it's not Kenny King, so who is it? Well, during this contest, Sonjay Dutt was looking very impressive, but he did this low-grounded moonsault maneuver to Kenny King, who was laying in the ring, and just the location of where Kenny King was at the time, as he was more closer to the ropes. And as Sonjay Dutt did this low-grounded moonsault, his head, unfortunately, came in contact with, I believe, the middle rope or the lowest rope, and his head kind of jerked back a little bit, and he actually ended up getting a little bit of help from medical personnel, so he was out of it for a little bit. So it pretty much had boiled down to Zema Ion, Mason Andrews, Kenny King. They're all getting it on. Critical point in this match, we would see Zema Ion and a returning Sonjay Dutt, who popped up later on. They are both climbing up 20 feet high above the metal X Division steel-like structure, and they're getting it on. And I don't know where the hell it came from, but Sonjay Dutt, he just gets a spray can out of nowhere, a hairspray can, and I don't know if it was up there at the top or if it was in his pants pockets like he usually has it. I don't know where the hell it came from. How it managed to stay where it did, I don't know. I don't want to know. But he sprayed it into the face and eyes of Sonjay Dutt, who eventually, not from the very top, but more so on the ropes, as eventually they were kind of standing on the ropes for a little bit there while still holding on to the metal structure above them. Sonjay Dutt would fall to the canvas as Zema Ion, he just plants himself right there in the middle, and he's taking his time. He's trying to unloosen that X Division title, and folks, he did it. Zema Ion is your new TNA X Division champion. So this just solidifies right here that TNA Creative, they are definitely trying to push Zema Ion, and I guess at this point they're trying to push him as hard as they can to have him possibly close out this year and work that program with Jesse Sorsen. The only question right now is, will Zema Ion be still holding on to that title sometime next year? As the way it's looking right now with the X Division, you can't really say for certain if Zema's going to be holding on to that belt long enough. I mean, the sky's the limit. It is a window of opportunity there. But I would say no, he couldn't hold it until then if TNA, they do a poor job of putting him in matches. Because think about it, when was the last time we saw Zema Ion? It's been a good minute since before he got involved into this whole X Division tournament. We really hadn't seen that much of him. It's almost like he just came out of nowhere, literally. Some of us will actually say to ourselves, wow, Zema Ion is still employed in TNA. Well, where the hell has he been? Point being, look at the Pope. The Pope just recently returned, right? And now he's gone, so we don't really know where the hell he is now. Anyway, Zema Ion is your new TNA X Division champion right there. You can only hope, especially for those of you that are Zema Ion fans, that he's able to get that TV time. He's able to really push the hell out of the Jesse Sorsen storyline. As post-match, the lovely Christy Hemme would catch up with Zema Ion as he dedicated his title win to all the haters, those that haven't been supporting him, and most importantly, to one person who has been the driving force for making his title win possible, as he thanks Jesse Sorsen, and would go on to say that breaking his neck, who'd have thought that he would become so dangerous, that he didn't realize that he could be so dangerous, and on top of that, be the most prettiest champion ever. As the fans, they were just grilling the hell out of him as he was talking, because you had these group of guys that were behind him. They're calling him Fruity Pebbles, and he kind of broke character a few times, telling them to knock it off, and they were chanting transition, and you had some people saying, what the heck does that mean? the guys that were chanting transition, they wanted for there to be a transition from him talking to another segment. That's what they were wanting right there. Or the other way you could take that is, hey, you're just a transition champion. You're just holding that belt for somebody else when they return. So take it either way. But either way is just not good for Zema Ion. And from there, folks, we have a video package of Austin Aries, Roobert Roode, as it's time. It's our main event match of the night, folks. It's our 9th match. If you all have been keeping tabs on how many matches we've had, tail of the tape now for Austin Aries taking on Roobert Roode. Both men, longest reigning champions. Of course, we had Hulk Hogan, the TNA general manager, who gave Austin Aries a proposal. Hey, you give me that X Division title, you cash it in, you jump in front of all the guys that are waiting to have a shot at the champion, Roobert Roode. You jump ahead, but you got to give me that belt. Austin Aries really wanting to make a impact for X Division champions to come after him, comes up with the option C, where every single year around the same time of the Destination X pay-per-view, whoever the X Division champion is, they will have the opportunity to cash in their title for a shot at the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, as it's been 8 months now since Roobert Roode has held the TNA World Heavyweight title, but it's his first title defense against Austin Aries. You just knew that this was going to be a straight-up, pure wrestling match, that this was going to be a fantastic match, hands down, as these two guys, they're going to be getting it on. You've had a sense of Roobert Roode style. You have a greater sense of Austin Aries style. You knew that this was going to be a classic matchup. Let's cut through all the red tape, folks. Critical points in this match. We see Roobert Roode, who really, for first half of this contest, these guys were just going move for move. They were just going at it. It was everything that you would expect. Roobert Roode, as always, he is feeling that desperation. He is sensing that he could be in somewhat of a jeopardy, and he does what he does best. He tries to grab his TNA title, and he's looking to hit Austin Aries with it, but the referee, he catches the belt in time, asks him what's he doing, tries to take the belt, throw it outside the ring. Now, as the referee is distracted, we would see Roobert Roode go in to Austin Aries with a low blow. So you could kind of say Roobert Roode, he knew exactly what he was doing. He just wanted to buy himself enough time to definitely pull off a dirty tactic on the challenger. He would then try to get a pin. No mas, only a 2 count, folks. Now from there we see Roobert Roode arguing with the referee, pushes the referee, trying to bully him, if you will. The referee, he pushes right back as Roobert Roode is in the corner after being pushed. And Austin Aries, he just comes in, back with the offense, and they're getting it on once again. As from there, the two men, they go into a series of roll-up pins only to score near falls. And from there, the man, he promised he was going to do it. Austin Aries, he delivered the brain buster DDT to pin Roobert Roode and become your new TNA World Heavyweight Champion, folks. Can you believe it? As we said at the top of the hour, you want to talk about a pay-per-view. As I'm watching this moment happen, along with the lovely Tammy and Zed, as we always are watching the TNA pay-per-views, we're saying to ourselves when we're watching this one, can you believe it? TNA, they pulled the trigger. And that was the sentiment of a lot of people that have been following the career of Austin Aries. Now, if you've been listening to our show long enough, you know I have always been a fan of Austin Aries. I've been a fan of Austin Aries since day one that he came to TNA. And if you would have told me a year ago when he came into TNA that he was going to become the World Heavyweight Champion, I would have said, no, I need to see a little bit more first. And I originally said it, and we'll definitely pull up the archives later for our Tuesday show, but I definitely said it a few months back. Before 2012 is out, Austin Aries will become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. What I did not expect was for it to happen this soon. I was kind of looking at more of late October, November, December. That's kind of the dates that I was going for, because honestly, I was under the impression that Aries was going to get his turn after James Storm. But the fans, they have just been so supportive of Austin Aries. They have been getting behind him. Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, TNA Creative, they knew that this guy was just white hot, that he could not be ignored. Kudos for Roobert Roode for working with Austin Aries and putting him over to become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I know we have a lot of hardcore fans that are out there that just can't stand Bobby Roode, and they wanted to see him lose that title so bad. Folks, when it's all said and done, we probably wouldn't even be talking about this pay-per-view right now or any other pay-per-view if Roobert Roode wasn't holding on to that TNA title. So, let's give a little credit where it's due. You may not like him, but he did a lot as the TNA champion. I mean, he is one of those TNA champions where you can actually name him amongst Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle. I bet if you were to try to sit up and compile a list of TNA champions, you wouldn't be able to name all of them, because there hasn't been that many that have had that much of a phenomenal impact. Roobert Roode would definitely be at the top of that list because he had a hand in reshaping, rebranding the TNA product. Don't believe me? Just eliminate him from being the World Heavyweight Champion and just think back to how it was before he had got the belt. It was a little bit kind of So let's give the credit where it's due. It is a new era for TNA as we have a new World Heavyweight Champion. This pay-per-view, just from top to bottom, I loved it. It was a great pay-per-view, hands down. I was a little tad bit disappointed with the Ultimate X match. And I can't stress it enough. I've seen better Ultimate X matches. This Ultimate X match, it just kind of felt a lot of times as I was watching this match, it felt like a lot of times the guys were, I don't want to say scared, but they kind of seemed a little bit intimidated and not really sure if they wanted to do this move or if they wanted to do that move. They just kind of seemed a little bit hesitating. And just the finish of the match, I just felt that Zema Ion was just up there alone a little bit too long. It really would have been nice had somebody climbed that rope and tried to fight it out with him. I think the payoff for that should have been him fighting the person for that title. He pushes them off, or they push each other off, and Zema Ion manages to grab the title just in time as he's falling to the canvas. That just would have seemed a little bit of a better payoff for me. But, despite that, because that was pretty much the only weak moment I really felt, because when I compare that Ultimate X match to the Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe, I have the Kurt Angle Samoa Joe being more entertaining than that Ultimate X match. Now, that should say a lot because you got 4 contestants in that Ultimate X match. You would think that you couldn't go wrong with all those guys getting it on, right? Well, for those of you that haven't seen it, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. Now, with regards to this pay-per-view, I definitely highly recommend that you order it, that you check it out. If you aren't able to order it, I highly recommend that you do check it out on DVD. Scale of 1 to 10, I would definitely have to give this pay-per-view a 10 out of 10. It's definitely going to be a pay-per-view that we're going to be talking about for years to come as we received a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. You just got to give credit to TNA Booking, TNA Creative. They did not have to go this route with Austin Aries. And as I'm sure a lot of you were probably thinking, I know we over here were definitely thinking it. I was under the impression that Roobert Roode was going to retain, but that he was going to continue his feud with Austin Aries because this is the first time that they were going to lock it up. It's fresh. It's new. It's something that could play out the remainder of the summer until Roobert Roode goes one-on-one again with the Cowboy James Storm and lose the title that way, because the way it just seemed like they were building it up within recent weeks was that it was going to be James Storm who would eventually probably win the Bound for Glory series and become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion, as he really hasn't officially had his first title reign as the new TNA champion. His last reign was just so short, but mad kudos right there. Great moment right there. Austin Aries fans, rejoice. Y'all got a new champion. This is what we're going to do right now. We're going to take a commercial break. Then when we come right back, we're going to take some of your phone calls. Definitely want to hear from you all that saw tonight's pay-per-view. And we're going to give that number out to you once again right before we go to commercial break. Special shout-out to those of you that saw the pay-per-view. Casual TNA fan, hey, maybe you hadn't watched TNA in about 6-8 months. You happen to come across this pay-per-view. We definitely want to hear your thoughts, good or bad. Call into the show, toll-free, 1-888-342-9848. Again, that toll-free 800 number is 1-888-342-9848. Just kick back, smile, and dial, and you'll be live on the air. We're going to take a brief commercial break, and by brief, I do mean brief. It's going to be a 60-second-plus commercial break, and then when we come right back, we'll jump right into it. So hang tight. You're listening to the Sunday night edition of the RCWR Post Show. We'll be coming right back, folks. Hang tight.
Tired of those wrestling websites that give you redirects, spyware, weird pop-ups? How about those misleading headlines? Instead of hitting the keyboard in frustration, why not visit InfinityOneProductions.com? Infinity One is the source for wrestling-related news and so much more without all the hassle. Visit InfinityOneProductions.com. Your keyboard will thank you.
You're listening to the RCWR Show with Lee Sanders.
And we're back. You're listening to the Thursday night edition. Oh, wow, Thursday. I got my dates mixed up. I apologize, folks. You're listening to the Sunday night edition of the RCWR Show on July 9th, 2012, 10 minutes after midnight. Interesting discussion going on in our chat room right now. We definitely got to give a shout-out to those of you that are in the chat room right now. And based on some of the things that people are saying, they are a little bit on the fence with Roobert Roode dropping the title to Austin Aries, as some of you feel that, hey, there goes the Roobert Roode versus James Storm rivalry. There goes that feud. Now what? And we have one argument saying, hey, maybe it should have been a triple threat match come the Bound for Glory pay-per-view where you pin James Storm against Austin Aries against James Storm. I definitely agree with what you all are talking about. Don't stop on my account. Continue the conversation. You guys are getting it on pretty good in there. And if you wish to participate in the chat room, you're more than welcome to do so. Go on ahead and join us. We're over on Blog Talk Radio. You can find us at blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR show, and you'll be able to run into our chat room that way. Hey, you don't feel like chatting? You want to look at some wrestling news articles, put a nightcap to your weekend? No problem. You can listen to our show right now, this live episode, over on our sister website over at InfinityOneProductions.com. No weird pop-ups, no spyware, no misleading headlines, just the content that you want to read whenever you want to read it, 24/7. So go check that out right now. I definitely agree with those valid points. I mean, now you can't really help but sit up and say to yourself, now what happens? What happens to the Cowboy James Storm? You did all this build-up for him. You did all these videos hyping him up on his ranch and talking about how he's getting ready to return. You have him defeat Crimson at Slammiversary. You have him end his undefeated streak. Okay? Now what happens to James Storm? One thing I definitely need to see happen going forward, we have to see a rematch between Roobert Roode and Austin Aries, and maybe this can be a case where Roobert Roode can get the belt back. I know some people are kind of be on the fence about that. Maybe they'll say, nah, man, I don't really see that happening. I think that if TNA is really smart, they could put the belt right back on Roobert Roode, and then maybe by then they can really figure out who they want to put the belt on. But if I were a betting man, and that's just a really nice idea, that's just something I would like to personally see happen, but there's that side of me that's really saying that that's not the direction TNA is going to go. I think they're just going to do their best to really sell Austin Aries, which is really unfortunate for James Storm, because when you really think about it, especially for you James Storm fans, we really haven't seen what he's capable of doing as the TNA champion. He really hasn't had his time to shine. So it really would be nice to see what he's capable of doing. I don't know, man. It's a tough angle right there. Should be a very interesting episode of Impact Wrestling coming up this Thursday night. Now, if you want to pick my brain and say what storylines we should expect to happen, like I said, I definitely expect for Roobert Roode to come out. He's going to try to get a rematch against Austin Aries. So that's going to be one of the main highlights of the night. And let's not forget, folks, we're going to have the appearance, if you will, in some shape or form, of the Aces and Eights. I hope I'm saying that name right. The guys that sat up and delivered that weird letter to Hulk Hogan on last week's episode of Impact Wrestling. So that should be interesting right there, as the Bound for Glory series will continue, as, who is it? Kurt Angle will be taking on Mr. Anderson. So that should be a really cool match right there. Without any further ado, because we don't have that much showtime left, we got about probably 15 minutes to spare, let's go ahead, let's open up our wrestling fan line. You can jump in right now, talk about how you enjoyed or disliked the TNA Destination X pay-per-view. Call us toll-free, 1-888-342-9848. Again, that's 1-888-342-9848. 9848 Kickback. Smiling Dow be live on the air. We got people that have been waiting patiently. Thank you guys for holding. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. I see we have a guy named Brian. Now, this is how we're going to do it. Please let us know where you're calling from and then proceed. So I unfortunately don't know where Brian's calling from. Let's jump right into it. Oh, wait. Let's jump right into it. Got the wrong person there. Brian, you're live on the air, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing good, dude. My name is Brian, and I'm calling from Miami, Florida.
All right, Miami. That's what's up. How did you like the pay-per-view tonight, bro?
The pay-per-view tonight was phenomenal, dude. I will say that all of the matches went great. The Ultimate X match, I thought it went really good. And as far as AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, that match went really great. Now, as far as like the storyline, I'm asking you this: do you think the storyline will continue between them for the next couple of weeks, and also like the pay-per-views that are coming up?
I would hope not, Brian, because honestly, the storyline is failing, unfortunately, because of the actress. Because if you think about it, look at how it was originally when they had introduced Claire. And, I mean, they gave her the mic. I mean, they literally gave her the ball, and they tried to have her run with it. But she wasn't really selling the story because of her poor acting. And as a result of that, you had TNA President Dixie Carter, who a lot of people say she has her moments where she puts on some decent acting, but a lot of times she comes off kind of, that sucked. But, you know, you had Dixie Carter, you had AJ Styles, you had Kazarian, you had Daniels, all trying to push the angle further, and we see Claire less and less not having anything to say, to the point where now you see a brief video footage of her for what she said weeks back. I'm hoping that this is the end of the storyline. If they want to go on ahead and push this storyline further, I just think it makes more sense for them to just die it down for a couple of weeks. This gives them an opportunity to just put it back on Kazarian, Daniels, AJ. They don't even need Claire Lynch now. If they want to bring Claire Lynch back, like I said a few minutes ago, they can just go on ahead, have a new actress resurface a couple of weeks later, one that can act, if that's a storyline that they really want to push. But I think right now, leave the storyline alone. You know, let it end on the note that it did tonight. What you had any other questions, or what else you want to talk about the show? How'd you like Austin Aries becoming the new TNA champion, man?
Right now, the way that I'm calling you out right now is that I'm calling you from the Hard Rock Hotel in Orlando, Florida. So I was there at the pay-per-view to go see it. It went really great. I had a really good time. And I'm gonna be going to sleep in about a few minutes. Now another question that I wanted to ask you. So since Austin Aries has been X Division champion for a long time, and Roobert Roode has been a World Heavyweight Champion for a long time, tonight was really the breaking point, whether if Austin Aries wins the championship or not. And in this case, he did win the championship. Do you see Austin Aries continuing to be World Heavyweight Champion in the next couple months, or do you see it ending anytime soon?
Okay, good question there, Brian. Thank you so much. And, hey, glad that you were actually at the event. Definitely feel free to chime in your thoughts more. Definitely appreciate you calling into the show. Make sure you check out all our episodes there. Very good question. Like I said a few minutes ago, there's a part of me from a writing/booking standpoint, I want to see Roobert Roode get the title right back at the next pay-per-view and work a triple threat program with Austin Aries, James Storm. That's what I would like to see happen. Is that how it's going to play out? I don't think so. I think at this point, TNA, they're just going to be like, okay, let's see what Austin can do. I honestly am just getting this weird vibe, and I usually when I get these weird vibes, you know, I trust them because it's my instincts kicking in, and I just have this weirdest vibe that Austin Aries is going to close out the year as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Do I hope I'm wrong? Yes, because like I said, James Storm, he hasn't had his turn. And I don't know. You know, some of y'all, you might not agree with me, but I just kind of feel like we need to see what James Storm is capable of because he never really got his shot. And yeah, Austin Aries, he kind of did just come out of nowhere, but you still kind of got to show a little bit of respect to those that have been there a little bit longer. No denying, Austin Aries, he's a great piece of talent. He's a phenomenal athlete. He just brings it every single time he goes in there. But I just kind of feel that they need to see what James Storm can do because really this is a curveball that just really came out of nowhere when you really think about it. I know that 29% of people that thought Roode was going to retain, I was definitely one of those 29%. I'm thinking there's just no way he's going to drop the title right now. It would make more sense for him to drop the title at Bound for Glory. That has his name on it. So, hey, I love it when spontaneous stuff like this happens. It makes it even more interesting. It makes it even more fun. Now it's got me, I'm sure it has many of you TNA fans saying, okay, I definitely can't wait to see what's going to happen next week. And should be a very interesting show. Let's go to our good friend Dave from the Michigan area. Dave, how'd you like the pay-per-view tonight?
Hey, good. I wanted to say two things, but I'll start off with, I was kind of, the way the show started, it kind of started off like, I'm thinking like, oh, this kind of reminds me of the King of the Ring. And all these young guys. When's the last time you've seen a pay-per-view filled with the first almost 2 hours of just guys basically you've never seen on TV before?
Been a minute.
I mean, I found myself kind of rooting for Mason Andrews. I was shocked he beat Kid Cash. I was like, I was surprised he won that match. I was like, wow. How shocking would it be if this guy would have won the title?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole Zema Ion thing, I was just like, I think they kind of gave it away when Jesse came out and, like, said, oh, I'm rooting for you to win. I was like, oh, don't tell me Zema's going to win it. And then, because they could have waited. I hope he doesn't keep the belt for, like, a year. And then that would be kind of boring. But I did enjoy the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I do like Austin Aries as champion. I want to say he can keep it, but I don't think he will because I would love to see Bound for Glory, the main event, be a triple threat match. Bobby Roode versus James Storm versus Samoa Joe.
Whoa, you went out there. Okay. You went out there with the Samoa Joe there. So you got Samoa Joe. Say your picks again for Bound for Glory. The triple threat is going to be who?
James Storm, Roode, and Samoa Joe. I don't think it'll happen, but it could be a good kind of review of like the old triple threat they had with Joe, Daniels, and AJ.
Yeah, it
I
could
mean,
be
3
good.
TNA originals, main eventing. I mean, that'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. Scale of 1 to 10, how would you give the pay-per-view?
I'd give it a 10.
10? Okay. Definitely a 10. All right. Well, Dave, thank you so much for chiming in your thoughts. We don't have with that much show time left. I just definitely want to say this in closing with regards to tonight's pay-per-view, and I'm sure those of you that are in the chat room, you probably are feeling the same way I'm feeling right now. Hey, WWE, game on, top that, okay? Because this was a pay-per-view top to bottom. Even though it had a little bit of a rough spots, it definitely earned a 10 out of 10. Let's not be mistaken, okay? So this was one of those pay-per-views you should not have streamed it. If you streamed it, I want you to smack your wrist and make it your business to buy it on DVD when it becomes available. Put it in your wrestling collection. That's a good way you can represent TNA for putting a very fantastic show tonight. WWE, game on, man. You guys have to sit up now, and you got to take notes from what you saw tonight, and you got to try to figure out how to top that, because what we saw tonight, folks, and TNA, they definitely did not disappoint. They are continuing the streak of delivering really great pay-per-views. We can say what we want with regards to how things have been going with them plugging their pay-per-views on Impact Wrestling. But when it comes to their pay-per-views, they have just been on one hell of a streak. I can only imagine how the Hardcore Justice pay-per-view is going to do. And if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be coming up in August 12th. So I can only imagine how they're going to do that pay-per-view, as you know it's going to be hardcore themed, as we're going to have a few hardcore matches thrown in there. That should really be a great pay-per-view. But TNA, Dixie Carter, very, very pleased with what you all had gave us wrestling fans tonight. Definitely a fantastic pay-per-view. Like I said, if you streamed it, smack your wrist. Make sure you buy it on DVD. If you haven't seen the pay-per-view yet and you were just a little bit curious on what I thought, what the fans thought of the pay-per-view, now you've heard. You be your own judge and decide if you want to check it out and order it on pay-per-view. A couple of quick notes for those of you that are not aware. We're going to be making a rare Monday night appearance on July 23rd. We're going to be coming on immediately after the 1000th episode of WWE Raw. I'm going to be joined by the lovely Tammy, and we're going to be joined by a few special guests that's going to share their thoughts on the 1000th episode of Raw. So mark that down on your calendars, and do hope that you'll be able to join us, as it's rare that we make a Monday night appearance. This will probably be our second or third time appearing on a Monday night. We got a great show coming up for you this Tuesday night, as it's the Tuesday Night Wrestling Report edition of the RCWR show. We're going to be following up the events of this past Monday night's WWE Raw Super Show, and we'll get you caught up on the latest in wrestling-related news. And I'll definitely be sharing more on the Kenny King Ring of Honor situation on that episode. So do make sure that you join us. You'll be able to check out that episode this coming Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, live on Blog Talk Radio and over at our sister website at InfinityOneProductions.com. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter at InfinityOneProd and Facebook at InfinityOneProductions. I want to take the time to thank those of you that had took the liberty of joining our chat room. Mad shout out to everybody who are in our chat room tonight. Really appreciate the activity that's been going on in there. You all had a lot of great things to say about tonight's pay-per-view. Thank those of you who have checked out tonight's live episode, and thank those of you that are going to be checking it out on the downloads and on YouTube. Special shout-out to the staff of Blog Talk Radio for featuring this episode tonight. Greatly appreciate it. Let's do this again, folks. This was an awesome show. Let's do it again this Tuesday night on the RCWR show at 11 p.m. Eastern. Until I hear from you all again, I am, of course, as always, the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders. You all be safe. Be kind to one another. See you this Tuesday night, folks. Take care.